so on. If everyone always talks about them, they assume this must have happened like this, etc. They don't do the historical Jesus. They run away from it. The rabbis pull a curtain down over it. They feel, oh, if we do this study, everyone will become a Jew for Jesus, and so on and so forth. I can't go into the mentality of the Jews, but basically, they're all sort of one or another kind of Pharisee, and accept all of the traditions, not in their own literature, about what they've heard, but they are the party of, they are the descendants of the Pharisee party. How did this happen? Who can explain that quickly so that we can get before going back to the Gospels? I know you want to get back to the Gospels, but this historical information can help, fill in the whole panorama of what we're dealing with here. How did the Pharisees become the representatives of Judaism? Are they representatives of Judaism in this spirit? Well, they're portrayed as being the representatives of Judaism in this spirit, but they obviously are not the only representatives of Judaism in this spirit, and they don't even seem to be the popular representatives of Judaism in this spirit. They are people who the Herodian family promote. They are the party of Judaism that's willing to live with the Herodian family, which brings us back to seeking after smooth things. They take halachot and turn them into halakot. They take Mosaic legal traditions, you shall not put a foreigner over you, and turn it into halakot, you are one of us, you are one of us, you are one of us. And in addition, they say things like, niece marriage is not banned. Now the banning of niece marriage by the extremists in the Dead Sea Scrolls, now we have their literature, didn't have it before, so we know about these things, has to be aimed at the Herodians. How come? Well, if you look at the genealogies in the back of my books, you'll see that the Herodians, like Arabs, in fact, all over the Middle East, even today, marry their close cousins and nieces. This is tradition in the Arab world, not the Islamic world, in the Arab world. In Baghdad, I recently read a week ago or so about this one fellow, I forget what it was, whether he was the American translator guy that got kidnapped or one of the other people anyway. He came back and they presented him with his cousin or whatever it was, and he married her. This is just expected. She has first dibs on you as a husband. And the Dead Sea Scrolls reject it on the basis of some parallel in the Damascus document, and they say she is near kin, she said, and there's a ban in the Old Testament on marrying near kin for men, and it said the laws of men also apply for women too, and so on. There's an argument in the Damascus document, you can see it, it's in column 4 and 5 on that particular subject, very modern sounding legal argument. It said, Josephus said, and Herod promoted Polius and Sameas, Hillel and Shammai, the two Pharisee fathers, who thought better of him than his mortal nature allowed, and while he killed all the other members of the previous Sanhedrin, which must have included Sadducees, either compromising Sadducees or extremist Sadducees. I go into the two parties of Sadducees in my Maccabees, Anarchists, Christians, and Qumran book, and I show that just like there are opposition and establishment parties in almost all these groups, there are opposition and establishment Sadducees. Who are the establishment Sadducees? The pro-Herodian Sadducees. That's who we were just talking about. The pro-Herodian Sadducees would be the Bethusians, the ones who were brought in with the high priest Boethus. The opposition Sadducees are the Dead Sea Scrolls, because the Dead Sea Scrolls say we are the sons of Zadok. Sons of Zadok is what the Greek term Saduki is trying to approximate. That's a Greek term. Zadok goes into Zaduk. And Zaduk, one who is a Zaduk, is a Zaduki. A supporter of Zadok is a Zaduki. So the Scrolls certainly are not a compromising Sadducee group. They're an uncompromising Sadducee group. When I say in my work, they're Messianic Sadducees. Well, that's not even in the New Testament, that part. Why isn't it in the New Testament? Because I think that the Christians being portrayed in the New Testament are the Messianic Sadducees. And we also call Messianic Sadducees, to some degree, Essenes. Why aren't Essenes mentioned in the New Testament? Because the Christians of all the parties are most like the Essenes. But Professor Eisenman, you said that the Essenes were peaceful. No, I didn't say that. That's what the rank and middle of scholarly opinion says. But Josephus, if you read him carefully, makes it very clear. The Essenes participated in the war against Rome, so they can't be peaceful. And he says they distinguished themselves by their outstanding courage, that they were willing to undergo any form of torture during our late war with the Romans, even unto death, rather than eat forbidden foods that the Romans tried to force down their throats. Well, what would we call those in Christian terminology? The first martyrs, people who undergo torture for their beliefs and suffering unto death. That's martyrs. So the first martyrs, I believe people in Rome saw these people as Christian. I don't think they called themselves Christian until Paulinism took hold. Paul, I think, in the book of Acts, is the first Christian, in the sense that the book of Acts says Christians were first called Christians in Antioch in Syria. That's around Acts 10 or 11. In the mid-50s, in the middle of Paul's missionary activities. If they were first called Christians in the mid-50s, in Syria, northern Syria, wherever Antioch was, what were they called in Palestine? Does that make any sense to you? I mean, they had to have a name previously. If there was such a movement previously, I think in Palestine, as I make clear in my latest book, they were what we would call Essenes. Now, there's another Christian writer, other than Josephus and Philo, who talk about Essenes. Philo talks about Essenes in Egypt, but they are a different group. They are very Gnostic and quite pacifistic, but they're not the Essenes of Palestine. They're what he calls therapeutoi. And the therapeutoi means healers. They had pretense like Jesus in the scripture to being healers and things like that. I think that the Gospels are highly influenced by Alexandrian Philo type work. In any event, there's another I've told you about description that most people ignore. And I think it's extremely important. I told you about it previously, but I can't emphasize it enough. He writes books on the sects. He is a 2nd century Christian writer in Rome. Now, we don't know if this manuscript was found recently, about 200 years ago in Mount Athos in Greece.